Hi there. My name is Deirdre V. Lyons, and I am a Los Angeles based actor. I have done two 180 VR films, and in 2019, I joined the ensemble cast of The Under Presents, doing devised theater and improvised theater in virtual reality. The Under Presents was selected as a finalist for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Innovation in Interactive Media.
In the Underpresents, you have stage shows that happen regularly.
You can rebuild ancient structures, make magic by removing your mask and snapping your fingers.
You have the Aikman, which is this incredible immersive play. And then you also have a bunch of different characters that are all played by us, the actors.
The Underpresents is unlike anything I've seen before, and it's the first of its kind.
It fuses VR and immersive theater together.
The Under is this world that has been created by the MC. The MC has brought in a bunch of different acts, from these cats that do this singing routine to fish who dance on stage to the premiere act called the Aikman that has gone off course and is now in the Under. Players can go and experience a bunch of different storylines, almost like an immersive theater show.
There's endless possibilities, and there are also actors there that you can interact with.
When an actor goes into the game, the first thing they see is a virtual dressing room. You have the choice of who you want to be and what powers you want to give yourself.
If we want to transport ourselves or players, if we want to spawn items, if we want to enlarge them, if we want to shrink them. With all of these tools that we choose, we enhance the story.
Okay, come.
I am a live VR actor in a Shakespearean production from the same studio, Tender Claws, called The Under Presents Tempest, which is a live, part scripted, part improvised, immersive experience that audiences can attend from home using a virtual reality headset. I was also a principal in Finding Pandora X by Double I Studios, winner of Best Immersive Experience in the Venice VR Expanded, the official virtual reality competition section of the 77th Venice International Film Festival. I also co-produced, co-directed, and acted in Para, an immersive horror experience.
Greetings, valued patrons. With seasonal festivities cancelled, we here at Para would like to cordially invite you to a live, virtual tour of our facilities and join us in being part of the next big thing. I believe introductions are in order.
And now our group of creatives are working on our second production. Woo! We will see how it goes. So I am here to talk to you about acting in virtual reality, both in 180 and 360 films, as well as being a live performer in virtual reality. You know, as people, we are natural storytellers. It is at the core of our nature, and we are now gifted with this new technology that allows us to tell those stories in a unique way in virtual reality. An environment that feels alive and visceral, that allows us to be almost anywhere in the world and feel like we're standing in a room together, which is incredible. I remember I was home in Los Angeles doing a show for the Venice Film Festival with a juror who was attending from Japan. Our audiences, they are now potentially global. So perhaps you have been cast in something and are wondering, okay, how can I adapt to this new medium? Or maybe you want to create something yourself. It's really not as hard as it seems. Or maybe you're looking for a way to stay creative and working during this very strange socially distanced time. Really, the potential is endless, and it is up to you. I want to start first by just talking about 180 and 360 films. This is the easiest, and we'll just get that taken care of. And then we will move into live VR theater and virtual reality. Now, as I'm sure most of you already know, a 180 film format uses only half of a sphere and assumes that the viewer will not turn their head around and look behind them, as all the action will be placed in front of them, and they will view the film by keeping their focus in the front half of this 180 circle. And then, of course, in 360 film, you can look in any direction, front, back, down, side, up, backwards, all those things can apply. So, but all of this doesn't apply to volumetric filmmaking, which is way more rare at this point because it is very expensive. So I will leave that out of our little discussion due to time constraints. If you are cast in a 180 or a 360 film television short as a host, this will feel very familiar to you if you've ever been on a film set. You will not need to worry about any of the equipment. There will likely be a director, perhaps there'll be a producer, lighting designer, scripts, PAs, makeup, wardrobe, all those various characters that you would find on any given film set. The biggest difference will come in the camera, where it is placed, and how you deal with the camera, which will be different depending on, of course, the production and, of course, the script, where we all start everything, the script. So sometimes you will just ignore it, as you would on most movie and television sets. But more often, the camera will be used as a character in the movie. The Willows was my first 180 film. The camera was a voyeur, and we would treat it like a VIP guest. We would directly address the camera as often as possible, treating the camera like our best friend or a co-conspirator. This was sort of it was a choose your own adventure format, and the audience would choose to either go with Deirdre into the kitchen to help her chop up vegetables and make the soup, or stay in the foyer with Claudia, who was getting obviously very drunk at the moment. And there would be these built-in moments that we would ask a question of the camera and then pause as we would wait for them to answer. And this would end up just this. Okay, so in the end product, this would end up being a choice the viewer only saw in headset when watching. But during shooting, this was an awkward moment as an actor. You had to stay alive in the moment and look inquiringly at the camera. It was weird and unnatural, but it's okay. Just if you find yourself in that situation, just keep breathing and keep moving, because in the final product, it's not as awkward as it felt during shooting. So it's okay. The viewer's attention is going to be taken up by making the given choice that is put before them. For Freakin' Weekend,
we never talk about your relationship. How's it going?
Had enough? Good.
You need a vacation, and I know just the place.
welcome to the Franklin house, where lovers come to be lovers. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and we need to properly kick it off
So we chose to choose.
to finding love.
Oh God! I'm just a total f***ing knob. Oh!
My second 180 VR film, the camera was a character in the film and was shot from a first-person point of view, and we treated it as such, acting with it, taking our lines to the camera, and treating it like any other actor in the film. This felt very similar to The Willows, but in Freakin' Weekend, the camera wasn't silent. It was actually a character in the film, and we had an actor who was the camera character and would say those lines during shooting, and then we would respond to them as the character was required to do so in the scene, of course. In both of these examples, it was very effective to play with the depth of field, coming closer and farther away from the camera. In VR filming, this is very effective. It can give the viewer a feeling that of intimacy that you may want to evoke. You can even do tricks, like leaning into the one side of the camera and do European kisses, kiss, kiss on each cheek, but only with 180 films. This plays very well. You can fix their hair. It's great, but obviously isn't going to work for a 360 film as they see all around, up, down, side. But it's fun to play with. Now, there is a sweet spot in VR that is close enough to feel intimate, but not so close that the viewer feels cross-eyed when they're looking at you. It's about the distance that you would stand at a cocktail party, but not so close as you would be if you wanted to be heard while you were whispering or talking in low tones to someone at that same cocktail party. Now, if you can get into a headset and watch some material that has been shot as a VR film, this can be extremely helpful in finding that sweet spot. You also see how it can feel quite intimate to the viewer, like you're talking directly to them and looking into their eyes. Keep this in mind when you are shooting, and try to find ways to incorporate this into your blocking, to be able to create moments where you can take advantage of this. Now, oftentimes, because the VR camera is static, they just set it up and it just sits there. Filming can move quite fast. It's just shot in a couple of masters and then boom, you're off to the next scene. It's kind of nice. So you can move to and from the cameras while shooting as it makes sense in the scene, and as if they are a specific character in the scene. Often what happens is actors will make this mistake of just standing there saying their lines to the camera. It looks presentational. Allow yourself the permission to move around. Certainly make the emphasis on being close to the camera because that's the most effective. But move around. Choreograph the scene around the camera character, so you're walking away and coming close as it makes sense in the scene. And if it's a very close and intimate scene, then just leaning forward and back is also very effective. Different directors are more or less cognizant of this, but in my experience, they are much more worried about the technical aspects in the moment, which are a lot. So give yourself the freedom to play a bit and let them pull you back if something just isn't working. So I want to turn now to live acting in VR. Since 2016, I have spent a lot of time doing immersive theater in Los Angeles. There are a lot of definitions of immersive theater, but for me, it's about being together with an audience in the same location without a proscenium or theater seating. It's about the connection and the moments that happen between you as the actor and the audience. The audience is mixed in and amongst the actors and becomes immersed in this world that we create for them, with this a focus on the individual and these personal moments of connection. In my experience, VR is well suited to theater, but more specifically, it is very well suited to immersive theater, where the audience becomes part of the story. Because all they need to do is put on a headset and be transported to another world. It's exciting. It already does a lot of the immersion for you, creating the suspension of disbelief, or what in gaming circles is often called the magic circle, just by being engulfed visually in this environment. Your scene partner will often be the audience, yet they will not know the lines, of course. I mean, why would they? But or what they're supposed to do at any given moment. So it is incumbent upon us, the performers, to give them the permissions and the boundaries of the world. And this will often call for a lot of improvised and devised theater skills, as you will need to tell your audience what is okay and what isn't, but it should always hit the right tone. It should always be done in a way that not only aligns with your story and your character, but it doesn't punish the members of the audience for doing something bad or wrong, because there is none. They're just doing what they're doing. Although you may have to chastise them for going the wrong way if you're going this way, or doing something that's incongruent with the story. So know your characters, brush up on your backstory, because you will need to say something when they ask you something. You'll have to have something to respond with. There'll be so many unexpected questions coming at you, and you have to be on your toes to be able to answer them. Because the audience in VR is often anonymous, I mean, they are literally wearing a mask on their heads. I've noticed that they can succumb to a carnival license, so to speak, and they will do things they probably wouldn't normally do in real life. Usually this is done in the spirit of fun and play, and it is a freeing thing. They get to allow themselves to play, to do things they wouldn't normally do, but on occasion it can lead to more challenging crowd control circumstances. And I always try and find a way to just deflect these instances, acknowledging them and then quickly changing their focus to another item or move to another part of the story. Doesn't always work, but it's usually my first go-to. Then, if that doesn't work, I give them a direct acknowledgement and a statement of consequence. For example, I will transport you to a place that you will have never been to before. That'll be my next step. And then you won't be able to find your way back. But if it gets too crazy, then just look to your team for backup. It is a rare circumstance that somebody will be that challenging, but it does happen. Technically, doing live theater in VR is, well, it's a whole different challenge. Here we get into some more difficult aspects, as you will need to deal with the VR equipment, which is, at the very least, a headset and Wi-Fi and some batteries. Most often, the production will provide you with whatever equipment you will need, but having your own VR setup can open up more possibilities, as it is a selling point to productions that are just starting out, that may not have a lot of money. If you have your own headset, it can help get you into something that you might like to be a part of. So you're also, if you have your own headset, familiar with how it works. So you're already familiar with the controllers and how these crazy things work, and perhaps you will have developed a tolerance for being in VR for longer periods of time, since VR overtakes all of your major senses. Some people find that they have motion sickness when they first are in VR, some worse than others. I remember going up spiral staircases a couple of times, and that just did me in, and I had to just lay there in a fetal position for a very long time. Well, not so long, like a couple of minutes. But it's something you can actually build up a tolerance for over time, like you would if you were out to sea a lot. Now, I know that you probably know this, but I'm just going to run through it really quickly here. There are a lot of headsets out there currently. Many of them require a PC with robust graphics cards to run the headset. Which would be the HP Reverb over here. There is the standalone VR headset, the Oculus Quest, and the Oculus Quest 2, which just came out, and at $100 less than the original Quest. Very exciting, because it's sure to be popular and bring a lot of new people and potential audience members into VR. It only requires the headset, decent Wi-Fi, and some batteries to run it. Downside of the Quest is that it can't run the heavy graphic images that the PC-based ones like the Reverb here can. So you might not be able to see everything that's in the world, and sometimes it won't be able to see the different environments or the different avatars. I believe that because the Quest is so popular, many producers will gear their productions to be able to include the Oculus Quest users just because there are so many more people with them. And while we are on the technical issues of VR, I should probably mention that there are items out there that can make your life a little bit easier. Controllers can go through quite a few batteries, so having rechargeable batteries can help offset the costs. There are Wi-Fi apps out there that you can get and use on your phone, like the Wi-Fi analyzer that will scan the local Wi-Fi signals in your area and let you know which channel to set your router to get the best signal. It's actually changing the channel on your Wi-Fi routers is actually quite easy. Most routers will have instructions on their website. If you sweat a lot, yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you sweat a lot. You could, or your face pad itches. You can get these sort of rubber covers like this one, and they just fit right over the face pad. It's really easy to take care of that. Some can switch them out completely. You can just take off the whole thing and switch it out for something that's a little more to your liking. There are a bunch of modifications that people will do to their headsets to make them more comfortable. Because the Oculus Quest, the original, is very, very front heavy. The Quest 2 is lighter, but I still find it a bit front heavy. More so than PC driven headsets are. I find that weights on the back, I put some weights on the back of the strap, can help offset this weight. Either in the form of a third-party companies who have made these lovely little things right here, or some people will just use a battery pack. They'll get a battery pack, they'll zip tie it to the back of their VR headset to give them more weight on the back, as well as more battery time, because you can take the little wire, stick it into the headset, and then into the battery pack in the back. So make sure you're also wearing the headset correctly. It should sit pretty low on the back of your head. So way down here underneath the back of your head. If you find you are having issues with it, you try making sure you're having it go all the way down here. Otherwise, it can put a lot of pressure and give you a headache. If you are using a PC if you're using a tethered headset on a PC, make sure that you, if you can, use an Ethernet cable that goes directly to the PC rather than using wireless signals, as that will be a little bit more unstable. Getting kicked off during a performance is really not preferred. With a tethered PC, you will have to also manage the cables. Yay, this can be a bit of a three-ring circus. But remember that unless you have full body tracking on, no one can see what your lower half is doing. So feel free to kick up your feet around those cords. No one will know that you're doing it. And try as often as possible when on a tethered headset to turn with your controllers so you don't end up all twisted around the cords. It can be quite a little dance. While we are on the subject of technology, there's a good chance that on occasion it will fail while you are in performance. I know, it's terrifying, but it's to be expected. This is a new technology. It will happen. Things will go well only about 90% of the time. Even after everything has been worked on, rehearsed, set, bugs have been worked out, it will. It just will. It's okay. Everyone understands, is forgiving of these tech issues. Even though we allow ourselves the gift of the suspension of disbelief to take us to these magical places, there is a part of our brain that knows we are at home, in our living room, our office, our den, our bedroom, wherever we are, with a headset on our head and controllers in our hands. So what do you do if things become glitchy in your world? Well, the first thing is to just wait. Just wait if things start to go sideways or everything freezes. Sometimes it just needs a little reloading time. If that doesn't work, then you can try tapping the power button on the side, boo, and see if that works if you're on untethered PC that sometimes, or untethered headset that sometimes works. If that doesn't work, then you can log out of the app that you're in and then log right back in. Worst case scenario, then restarting your headset entirely. And now try not to place your headset on its face like this. It doesn't really like that. It just doesn't. Place it on its side, especially when it's on. It's better VR headset etiquette. Which leads me right into the inevitable. The outside world. It exists and it will show up in your performances. Phones will ring, cats will meow, helicopters will fly above your home, and leaf blowers will blow outside. I remember once, while I was doing the Underpresents Tempest, I got really loud knocks from our front door several times. It stopped for a minute, and then they knocked loudly again. And I knew that they could hear me inside because I worked just inside my front door. So they just kept trying. Then I got booted off my Wi-Fi. And so I stuck my head out the door to see the poor cable guy out there. It was 7 p.m. And I told them, you know what? You just kicked me out of my show. I'm doing a show right now. Come back in the morning. Luckily, the Wi-Fi was back on when I got back in, and I was able to get back into the Tempest pretty quickly. And I only lost 2 audience members of the 4. So we continued. Bah, c'est la vie. And Tender Claws is really great. They always make sure that everybody gets a good show. So I am sure they took care of those 2 audience members that did get kicked out of the show because, it's technology. Things happen. I recommend doing whatever you can to minimize these distractions. Anything you can think of. Before going into show, try to remember to silence your phone. Maybe put a note on the front door. My front door happens to be that way, by the way, so I keep looking at my front door. Feed your pets. And then if something like this still leaks into your show, well, I usually try talking really loud over it, or I'll make a joke if in the scene, if it seems appropriate. But all of this to say, give yourself the gift of imperfection. Expect it and embrace it, and realize that perfection is an unrealistic and a boring goal, especially in VR. Now, one of the super fun things about VR is that you are no longer limited to humanity as a character. Your avatar, the VR representation of you, can be anything from a toaster to a cyclops. It doesn't matter what you look like, what your age is, what your sex is, who you are. Your avatar can be anything. So take some time with your avatar. Learn how it moves. A VR mirror is especially helpful with this and can often be found when needed, as they are commonly built into VR worlds and into shows. With the Tender Claws, the Tempest, and the Underpresents, we had one right in our virtual dressing room in VR chat. There's VR mirrors all over. There's even worlds built with just VR, with just mirrors in mind. And they're ubiquitous in VR chat. So they're usually there when you need them. Now, your headset and your hands are your primary in the VR world, as they are connected and they track each other, especially in the Oculus Quest world without full body tracking. So unless you have that full body tracking setup, legs are not as easy to move and will either move depending on where you're standing or if you're crouching, or will go into a walk style when you're moving long distances. But legs won't respond to any kind of manipulation from the controllers, although they will sometimes respond to a change of height. For example, in Finding Pandora X. So what do you say? Are you ready to do something? Now remember, Zeus is a little temperamental. We have to approach with caution. The chorus and I have come to deliver you a message. Zeus made himself into a giant during one of our scenes, and then, during a quiet moment, he crouched down and whispered something to me from behind his hand, which, of course, everyone can hear because of how sound works in VR. But his avatar did a crouch down. It was quite nice. It looked like he was kneeling down. I mean, they don't always do it. It just depends on how the avatar is rigged. So it's worth it to take some time to figure out what kind of movements work with your particular avatar. I spent a good amount of time working on my bow as Corey for the show, because I was Corey Fayas, the chorus leader in Finding Pandora X. Think of your avatar more as a puppet, and working with an avatar pulls heavily from mask work, projecting your character's emotions through your body with the way that you use your head and the way you move your arms. Learn to expand your physical vocabulary. Sorry, I just made up that word. Learn to expand your physical vocabulary and try to keep the avatar moving at all times. It looks the most real when it is moving, and it is a great way of hiding things that might be going on with your controllers. For example, you may have to bring up a menu to spawn a prop, which is the word most often used for creating an item. So keep your arms moving and your head moving while you're scrolling through the through the menu on your controller. That way the audience won't know what you're doing, because they can't see your controllers and they can't see your menus. And then all of a sudden, bam, you magically produced an item. Now sometimes the stillness of an avatar can work for your benefit. For example, in Para, we did have artificial intelligence avatars. They were supposed to be artificially intelligent. So when the audience first comes into that scene at the top of the show, they see all of our AI standing there very, very still, not moving, and they look like pictures or non-moving, non-real things. And then all of a sudden, since there's actors in them, they start moving and coming to life, and it's just a magical, fun moment. So sometimes it makes sense to just be still, but usually keeping your avatar moving at all times, actively listening, and always having your head and body. I think I'm doing it now. I'm always having my hands and my head moving all at the same time. But you do want to avoid fast movements, fast to big movements, like turning around in a circle as your headset. You just can't track that fast, and then your avatar's arms will end up all twisted behind you like this in a very unnatural way that you could never do in person. But if the movements are small and fast and in front of your face, that's okay. That's usually fine because the trackers can follow them, but otherwise they can get a little janky. So you should keep a lot of light in the area that you're working in. The sensors need a lot of light to track the controllers, and to try and give yourself a good amount of space is always beneficial to work. The more space you can give yourself, the better. I know this isn't always possible, and you'd be surprised at how small a space you can actually work in when necessary. Just try and make sure you won't be throwing your hands around during your performance and slamming your hands into walls, because not only can that hurt, it can kill your controller, or it can make your controller go wonky or weird for a while and take it a moment to sort of reset. Controllers can be a real source of frustration for a while. Just the process of just getting to know them. It's a bit like driving or typing. There is a muscle memory involved. It won't take long before you have it down as second nature. I mean, I remember when I first started being so exasperated with these things, just they drove me crazy. I was just, I wish I could get the controllers down, but it's okay. It's okay. Just take a breath, concentrate on the scene, and allow yourself the time that you need to do what you need to do with the controllers to make the scene work. That's the most important thing. And then do it again, and do it again, and do it again. It takes a while to get that down. Now, when manipulating objects with your hands, at this point, you can only hold one thing at a time, one item in each hand in VR. So only one prop per hand. You can't pick up a bunch of flowers and make a bouquet, for example. You can only hold one flower in each hand. And when picking it up, it may be in a very strange position. So you need to go back and forth between your hands to get it in as natural a placement as possible. Experiment with how your hands look on the object as well, and then try to memorize the best location for grabbing the item. So for example, in finding Pandora X, I had a staff that I was holding, and so I would take some time to find exactly where I needed to hold the staff that make the most sense in the relationship to the avatar, but also in relationship to how the hand looked holding the stick. If I put it too far in, it looked like it was going through, and if I had it too far out, it looked like it was floating. So there is some finesse there, and it just takes a moment to sort of figure that out. And now sometimes tracking will get stuck or lost with your hand. I find a good shake usually resets it. Don't know why that is, but usually that's my first go-to when it just sort of freezes. Or it could be your battery. You could try changing your battery. Because your voice is the most alive thing in this computer-generated world, it is a very important tool in VR. Use different pitches, tempos, accents, inflections to bring your characters to life. Even if you are a giant chili with spindly legs, because your voice is so important in VR, lean into descriptive words. Take the time to paint the world with them. Indulge yourself with words, sounds, and noises. Now, there is a very inconvenient thing in VR. It's this little bit of a pause. It's you'll have to deal with latency. It's the very slight pause between what you say and when the audience hears it. As technology progresses, this will hopefully change, but as of now, it is best to be aware of it and find ways to work around this delay when necessary. Use leading sounds or words. These can help. Laughs, sighs. They can alert the audience that you are now about to talk, or to pull their attention to you prior to whatever you want them to see or do. For example, when I was doing Finding Pandora X, there was a line that I would say that Zeus would usually want to have a silent response to. It was the moment that I told him that the other gods were still alive, but they were locked out of Mount Olympus. And he would want to have a gasp and a step back in surprise, a little emotional moment. But because I would say this, and it would take a moment for Zeus to hear it, and then it would take a moment for him to react to it, I would cover this delay with a grand bow and give him some time to react and respond. You do have the option of sitting or standing when you perform. If you are sitting, it's best to be in a swivel chair and not in a tethered PC, if you can. In general, I suggest always standing when you perform. You'll have the most freedom of movement. The headset won't become confused about where the floor is and not let you pick up something. Because it's this weird thing. You go to pick up something and it just won't let you because it thinks the floor is below the floor. Go figure. And you'll just give better performances, as it'll help to keep your energy up and it won't just sink down through the ground, as my acting teacher used to say. Make sure you rehearse anything you are doing in VR. You may have the lines down cold. I have it, I've got it, but you get into VR and it is such an unusual world that it just throws you. And if you haven't had a chance to work in the VR environment that you will be performing in, it's tough. So just give yourself some time to do that. And because this is live theater and often immersive theater, deal with what is given you and what is right in front of you. Don't ignore something someone does or a strange thing that happens in the world because it deviates from the script or is inconvenient. Acknowledge it. Include it into what is happening in the show. It will make things much more alive and real, not only for you, but for your audience as well. So, it's a brave new world out there. And if you choose to embrace VR, well then, welcome to the future.
Hey, Deirdre. Do you unmute yourself? Such a...
The first thing somebody should... Yes, that's very sad of me. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you for this really great talk. So much details and so much experience that you're sharing. I'll make this as a mandatory talk for all my students. So before they approach any 360 production, they need to watch your talk because it covers everything. I mean, I couldn't find anything that is not mentioned in there that they need to consider when they want to work with actresses and actors and do a 360 movie. Like, you cover everything from the lighting to the end device to your audience to the acting. It's super, super great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do have a bunch of questions that we can talk about, and because that can definitely give more insights even than you already gave for any audience out there. And if they want to post some questions, now is the time. And if not, then your fault. Then I'll just ask all the questions. So one clearly recognizes that you love acting in VR. And what is it that you like so much about being in that space?
Well, yeah, it so reminds me of immersive theater, and I love immersive theater because of the connection that you can have with your audience and the impact and the effect that you can have on them. And in immersive theater, you see it on their face and the way their face lights up or changes. And in VR, you see it in their body language, their physicality. But that's really what I have really come to enjoy is the interactions between me and the other audience members during shows and while working in the under. It's quite profound and a beautiful connection.
And what would you say is a major difference in terms of how you approach storytelling inside of VR than to, let's say, a normal stage or any other form of performance?
Well, as an actor, I touched on this. It's very physically. It's a physical performance as well as a vocal performance. It is reliant on those things quite heavily, as opposed to in theater. On stage, if you're lucky enough to sit close to the actors, oftentimes you can see, the tears or the emotions on their face. And in VR, we don't have that. We have our voice, we have our movements, but we don't have tears. The only way tears can be conveyed are through the voice or even smiles, depending on your avatar. Some of them have the mouth moving, some of them don't. But I could also transition here a bit into producing in VR because I have done a little bit of that. And I just want everybody to know it's actually not as hard as you think. It's actually quite easy. It's not something people realize that you could just take and switch out your set builder for somebody who knows Unity. You take and you switch out your costume builder or your costume designer for somebody who can build avatars, and then everything else is very similar to doing theater in real life. You rehearse in VR. You do lighting design, sound design. It all goes through Unity. It's not It's not as hard, and then people will host that on different platforms that currently exist. You don't necessarily have to build your own platform like the Underpresents or the Underpresents Tempest has. We produce in VR chat. So I would say that the biggest challenges with that and differences between theater and that live theater on stage in real life and live theater in virtual reality is that you can't have as many audience members at this point because of computing power, and you can't you can't ask people to be in headset for long periods of time at this point. Most people haven't built up a tolerance. So I would say a 45 minutes to a 50-minute show, maybe an hour at the most, is usually about a good amount of time for that. Latency is always a bit of a challenge to deal with, but those are some of the drawbacks. But there is a storytelling platform out there that has so much potential. And specifically because the pandemic has come along, that there's a lot of people interested now in VR and in the world in VR. And I would ask people to come on in and be creatives in there, because it's wide open.
So Jeff has asked a question. Can you share a story of a moment that felt like unexpectedly deep connection with an audience member in a VR show?
Well, there is a lot, particularly with the pandemic. There's been a lot of moments of wanting connection and wanting to hug someone, to hold someone, and we do that in VR. We do reach out and hold hands, and we do hug, and there is a part of your mind that will supply that memory and fill in those moments, so that you get a satisfaction that feels like you've hugged somebody because you had that intention and then you did it. But to give you a moment, I do remember once when we were doing the Ferdinand and Miranda scene, and somebody made a Buster. A Buster is one of their dogs that they can make with magic. And so all of a sudden, Miranda had a little dog that followed her around and was part of the scene. So there's room for spontaneity. One person made a giant cupcake for a wedding cake during the blessing ceremony. And then we all sort of put our head in it and pretended to eat it in virtual reality.
And where do you see the future of acting in VR?
I see so much. I see so much potential. I see so many people doing some amazing things, and there's still very much not that many. But gosh, there's so much work that's growing and coming. So I just saw a Scarecrow, and I saw stuff that the Leela Live people were doing. There is an immersion that happens in VR that it really is an incredible platform for immersive storytelling. But then you can also fly, and you can in Pandora X, we went to Futura City and to Hades. It's only bound by your imagination and then technology. Like, can't. Yeah.
What's kind of and so sort of also, what's the next project you're working on? Is there already something in the pipeline that you are allowed to talk about?
Sure. Well, currently I am doing The Tempest. It is in part of the Raindance Film Festival, and if you haven't seen it, it's a very good example of theater in VR, and theater that works really, really well in VR. It basically works like a one-person show. It's Shakespeare's The Tempest. It's very interactive. It's about 45 minutes. And it's only $15. So if you got until November 15th to get to the Raindance Immersive Film Festival website, find out the link and go to tenderclaws.com/tempest, or figure out how to, or even just contact me and I'll let you know how to get in there and get tickets. But so yeah, you can still see it. And then I'm working with my crew to produce a holiday show. So we're gonna put up Krampusnacht for the holidays and continue this journey of acting and producing in VR.
And so if you put that out there, what are the different platforms that you can actually put a show like that onto? What are the distribution channels that are already available, and what would be like needed maybe also in the future?
Oh yeah, no, well, that yes, absolutely needed. So you know that you can build your own platform, but that's a lot harder than most people need to do or go for. But there's these social platforms like VR Chat, which is what hosted Finding Pandora X, also hosted Para, is hosting Scarecrow, hosts Krampus Nocturne, and other things. And what's nice about it is that you can manipulate the avatars and create your own avatars. You can build your worlds. There's other ones like Alt Space, but in that one the avatars are more standardized, and you can change the hair or the clothes and the skin tone and the face shape, but you still don't have legs or arms. You just have hands. So the avatars are way more very much similar. So I can see it being very good for like a comedy, like a sitcom, or for maybe for a drama. Depends on the right one. So like an Alt Space, maybe Facebook Horizons, which is coming out, Rec Room as well. There are other social platforms, but those are the ones that I'm most familiar with. What's nice about VR Chat is that it is accessible if you build your world to Quest specifications, that you can access it that way. There's other ones like, I believe, Sansa, that are only accessible by tethered PC. So yeah, those are the ones that are there currently, but we do need one that's a little bit more stable, that's better for theater. Mozilla Hubs is another one that I've seen stuff in. So there are platforms out there that you can host and stage your show on.
And if you would need to pick one thing about acting in VR that you would say this is the killer feature or whatever one calls it, what would that be?
It's the immersion. It's absolutely putting on that headset and looking all around you, and you are in another world. And then when you stand there with other people in VR, it feels like you're there with them in this strange and magical world of somebody's imagination. So I would encourage everyone to give it a try.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a real pleasure, and it's an awesome talk. And I told you it's going to be mandatory for the students. And well, see you on the Discord of Global XR Bootcamp. And
I think
I'm looking.
Go into the community zone if anybody wants to come and say hi.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to your show that's coming out for the winter.
Yes, hopefully we'll see you there.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.